I do share the concerns that Max, you were sort of raising, the kind of, this can be, what did you say, 1,000 times worse than kind of the Facebook era. I totally agree with that problem. I don't know how we're going to avoid it. I would like to come up with solutions. I'm not convinced that just having one layer of the ecosystem, like have these kind of good principles, is necessarily going to cause everybody to align around that. Because I think there's a challenge that the tools that we use with those models are kind of co-evolving and improving with them. So for example, I use Claude Code basically all day, every day, and it only works with Claude models. I recognize that. I recognize the sort of corruptibility and mind control that can come out of such a thing. But it actually is by far the best thing that I've been able to find after exploring a dozen or so different tools and models. And so I use it every day. I'm happy to change. I'll use something else if you come up with something better. But it's hard to say I'm going to stunt my own abilities out of some sort of a near-term desire for sovereignty or desire for privacy.
And I want to be clear. There's a couple things you bring up that are really interesting jumping off points. One of them is like, I think a lot of people are on the internet. It's privacy. It's these weird cypherpunks. Like, let's be very, very clear on what we're talking about here, guys. This is the frog boiling in water. I'm not saying whatever, I want to be using mixers on the dark web and all this weird stuff. No, I'm saying just like imagine your own life. You talk to the AI and you say, hey, AI, help me make this food for my family. And at first it's really good and gives you all these fresh and wonderful ingredients. And the next day, and forget the evil insidious pieces that may or may not be there for certain players. Let's just say it follows very similar market incentives to what Facebook and Google did in their era. And they say, you know what, we really need to pay for this true $1 trillion of CapEx we're never going to get back. Our investors are finally waking up on that. And we can't find other business models. So we're going back to ads. And okay, we're going to start off pretty good though. We don't want to totally abuse the process, but you know what? Hershey's is going to pay us $200 million. And look, there's 20 ingredients in there. We're just going to change one. And that natural cacao that you were getting from Mexico that was no sugar in it, was good for you, good for your body, made you feel whole. Just a little bit of Hershey's. Come on, Hershey's. What is that really going to hurt you? And
just a little bit.
Yeah, yes. Solo un poco. And then all of a sudden, the next week it's like, well, we got $200 million from Hershey's. Look, Monsanto, they're not that bad. Really, they're not that bad, are they? Nah, come on.
They have a large budget.
They have a large budget, and now they're going to pay us $2 billion. And look, man, Wall Street is that they don't give two fucks. We got to pay them back. But look, I swear this is the last one. We're not going to do it again. And then that keeps going until 20 years out. All of your recipes are brought to you by companies that now leave you diabetic, overweight, trapped in your home, plugged into a VR. It's a slippery slope. And so my point is, the more you have this tool, this assistant engaged in your daily life, it can get real dystopian real fast. And so
I totally agree, but I think we need to figure out what are the ways to solve that before that crisis occurs. Because right now we're on the default path that crisis will occur. You're seeing 10 years into the future.
I know.
I completely agree with it. But you talk about the idea, and I actually do this myself. I subscribe to, 5 or 6 of the premium LLM services, and I just rotate my use among them, not out of necessarily a privacy concern, though I could understand why that would be. I feel like it's nice to not have all of my stuff in one place, but I'm just curious to see what's the state of the art, what's the best stuff available. And I want to understand the trade-offs of which things are better at maybe coding, which things are better at math, which things are better at drawing things. I love to understand what's the frontier of what's available. But I do notice that when I repeatedly use one, it pulls from a memory that it's created. So if you are always fuzzing and mixing your stuff, then you actually lose that. And you're going to find that people say, actually, it can reference this conversation I had last week and add that to context on the new thing we're talking about. That's better. I'm going to keep using that. So the only thing I'd say is don't just advocate for the technology primitive to be right. You actually need to advocate for products to exist that can match or be better than the ones that are basically going to run away with your mind. So and I don't know how that's supposed to work.
Let's talk about future solutions, right? Because to me, And I'll say this, I'm also very bearish on the products. Like I actually 100% agree with Elon on this. Like I'm to the point where it's like, I think software, like, I mean, good for the teams that are building now. They're going to make, a lot of money while like short-term bubble, like there is no bubble long-term, but like, yeah, that's fine. But like, I agree with Elon, like the phone or whatever hardware you're using, it's just going to become a place to run the model. You talk to it. Like you don't need apps anymore. You don't need software. Like I think that era is kind of done. And like the old world investors are just like, I mean, again, if you can, it's like the crypto. If you get out of it fast enough, you're fine. But like, if you're an investor that wants to hold for 25 years, that's not where I would be looking, right? Like I would be looking at things that are scarce. We talked about that, but anyways, but my broader point is, so how do you compete on the model game? Right. I mean, it's beautiful that we have people that are building these open routers. Like, again, I think I see two paths right now. One path is it's kind of the like, three paths. You use open source and you just say, you know what, we hope that they're good enough and I'm going to make that trade-off. Some people will make that and maybe in the long run it's worth it. And they're going to be the Freemans or whatever and from Dune series, the people that still have thinking capability in 25 years, and good for them. I'm glad services like Maple exist. That's an option. Another option is we figure out a way to just kind of like confuse the system, which is the sort of like routers or like sort of mixers and anonymizers for all these models. I think that's a promising route. I think Nostr and some of the companies that are building in that ecosystem could be exploring that. A third option.
Pay with Bitcoin too.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that when you're done with your options.
Totally. And then the third one that I see is, and I'm actually surprised no one has even discussed this. And I get why, because it's just like, it's a game of kings. To quote Bill Gurley, which I stuck with me. I would actually say it's a game of pirates. But just build our own. Now, how are you going to build your own? I mean, like, yeah, Zuckerberg is throwing down like $100 million bonuses to hire the best people. So like, how could people that believe in this ethos even dare to dream of an open source model, which as one example, instead of just open sourcing the weights, open sources the entire data set? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, one possibility I would say is, there's a lot of really, really, really wealthy people in Bitcoin. Like, imagine if you had some companies like Tether, who's already, at least directionally going this direction. And frankly, a bunch of the whales that just came forward and said, whether this is for profit, nonprofit, I don't know. But like, you know what? Some of the richest humans alive are Bitcoiners. They're going to throw down. This is a project to save humanity. That's one idea. What would that look like if you could raise $10 billion from Tether and a bunch of whales, for profit, nonprofit? I don't know. But it's like literally like this is our act to try and let human consciousness have a shot at freedom.
We have a new 2026 event idea for Presidio Bitcoin.
I love it.
Right?
What's that?
I'm being serious.
Let's do it. Like, how can we build our own model?
Title the event. What is that? Is that what it is? Is it how do you build your own model?
I'm gonna.
What's the event idea? I want to make sure.
I can describe the event is what Max said. I mean, it's getting together wealthy Bitcoiners to share this idea and fund it.
Yeah, and figure out like hopefully there's like a for-profit model that makes it sustainable. Wealthy Bitcoiners and companies like Tether, like, I mean, that is the good news, right? Is that, and I think something that's under discussed in Bitcoin is the fact that like some really like frankly kind of out there people got unbelievably wealthy from this. I mean, a lot of them probably still have the values of like, they want to see human freedom. So
I almost feel like if you want to build this product today, you should
not a product, a model.
You want to build a brand new model.
Correct. From scratch.
Okay.
So with privacy, David, you mentioned you use a lot of different LLMs. I do as well for the same reason you mentioned. But not a primary reason we're doing that is it could help with privacy. I mean, but the thing is we've paid with credit card for each of those with our identity, right? Yep. But what if we paid with Bitcoin and we didn't share our identity? Then the only privacy leak you need to worry about is what you're actually providing in the prompts, which definitely can dox you. So we need to solve that. But I do think that would be a reason for people to pay in Bitcoin. So any privacy sensitive consumer, it would be great to have something that's bundled and works that way. So imagine if you're using Goose, which just integrated an open router, not open router, but a different router, but some kind of router. And imagine you have a wallet within Goose, or it uses NWC and connect it to a wallet. So you have Goose has a budget now that you've set for it to pay, and then it farms out queries to different LLMs, and it does pay per use and pays in Bitcoin. It seems like that would enhance privacy. What do we think?
Yeah,
I mean, I generally like the general contours of what you're describing. I worry about how, I guess, are you working with like a single interface and you're attaching a wallet that you control to that interface, and you're sort of trusting that interface is managing your privacy concerns properly and dispatching and kind of cleansing data properly?
Yes.
And to be clear,
concrete. Oh, go ahead.
Well, this already kind of exists. If you tried Routester, it's like the model router, but on Nostr. There's PPQ as well. Like, they don't collect any identity. So there's no, even if they wanted to, I guess they could save your IP or something. But
I guess what I would want to see, though, to make it at least sort of on par with some of the best experiences, is that when you issue a prompt and you get a result, you now have a bunch of context on me. What did I want? What did I get? Right? Maybe subsequent prompts on that chat session. In that, there are facts about me and what I care about. And those, the way these systems work today is those facts get extracted as part of the memory of the system. Those facts could be stored in some sort of a private repository. Maybe it's on Nostr, but not publicly available. Maybe it's more like on a Nostr relay, but only accessible via my private key. But those could be used then for subsequent dispatches to a separate LLM, so that there's some of that context or memory gets carried. But I feel like that's one of the core things that the centralized services are really good at.
It could just be stored within Goose, right?
Yeah, or just store it with your Nostr identity. Like, you could just create an ephemeral identity. I mean, or not. I get your point. Like, you want to store the context.
I mean, you just run Goose and it's just stored on your computer, and then you can encrypt it and back it up if you want.
Or you could do it in the cloud just with a Nostr identity, and like, hey, we don't know who this person is. We just know it's a pub key.
So
you need a tool that knows to extract those facts and save it somewhere and submit them at the appropriate times.
Goose, like a Goose. I mean, we're speaking to a roadmap, but this would be a roadmap for Goose. Goose is open source. It's client side. That already exists today. It just integrated a router, which I haven't used that. I've used OpenRouter, in which I had to establish a customer relationship with OpenRouter out of band. I haven't used it yet. My understanding of the new one that's integrated into Goose, it's just more seamless experience, but I'm sure you still have to like credit card, KYC. So you can imagine, but maybe like Routster or something, you can imagine one that doesn't require KYC. You can imagine Goose either integrating a Bitcoin wallet within Goose or use NWC. Either way, then it has money.
Yeah.
Somehow you have a budget, you set constraints so it doesn't blow all your Bitcoin. And then it stores all of your prompts, all the results locally. It can back it up for you, encrypted, and then it uses all that information in future queries. So you can imagine all that. And usually I think consumers don't care about privacy, but as I said earlier, with this, I think there's quite a few sensitive areas where people are like normal consumers are going to care about privacy. So you could market a tool to them that's turnkey, packaged up. You don't need to know any of the details I just mentioned. It just sort of works out of the box. But it's I think it'd be marketable though.
If it is calling though, I think that it's tricky. I like all of that. I think that it's like a great direction to explore, but I'm still concerned that it's hard to know what of those facts that are backed up and encrypted should be submitted to which private, state-of-the-art model. And that can actually leak a lot of data into that state-of-the-art model that's private closed source. So how do you sort of ensure that the private data that you're submitting is not used? And I mean, honestly, it will be used, right?
It's a good question, but that seems like a huge value add. Like you could even like client side, it could be smart about analyzing both your prompts and the results, highlighting how you're doxing yourself.
Yeah,
right.
And actually, even before you submit the prompt, be like, suggest like, can you word it a different way? and suggest that alternative wording, and then be smart about when it's combining these different outputs for some future prompt or context for a prompt, eliminating PII or whatever. So I think that seems like there's room to explore there and maybe make a dent.
I think it's good to explore and you can make a dent. Yeah.
And I would love to see, I mean, I know we talked about Goose funding open source developers and whatever, like this would be so cool if we could get like 10 people here with us at Presidio Bitcoin, where like, I think we can make a lot of progress in person. Like this, the like fund a new model, that's a big grand dream vision. But this is something that like, I think we could like make progress on today.
I agree. Also bringing it back to Mavel AI or just
let's get those guys
the TE model in general, which we said today, it's a really nice privacy model. But since it doesn't have access to the best models, that's a disadvantage with it. But there can be some tasks you can farm out to that and it's totally fine, and others you can't, but it could be part of this privacy mix as well, right? Some of your prompts go to Maple AI using 5 or 6 or 7 models that they support, and that'll meet your needs. And if you ever need a beefier model, then you can go to those other models and just be sensitive with what sort of filter, have it like auto filter what you send to it.
One other random thought on the big like human freedom model. I wonder if Apple could be an ally here. I mean, Apple is so far behind on the model stuff. I mean, their whole brand is around privacy. They're the ones that even created all this like encrypted cloud T stuff, I think, or at least they popularized it. I wonder if there would be some way to like bring them into that fold, because maybe this is their chance.
That's a great idea. And since Presidio Bitcoin and the show is all about bridging the gap with Silicon Valley, we should try to get the 10 people here to build, and some of them should be from Apple. I think that's realistic. Right?
One of them, I already know without doxing him, it's someone that we all know, a co-investor in a few things who was at Apple doing a lot of this stuff and is like hardcore in this world. So we could even like, who knows, maybe we could even like poach him and have him lead. Like that'd be really cool. Like to have like a privacy AI lab here at Presidio Bitcoin with like this dude's state of the art, and just be like, fuck it, we're throwing down the gauntlet. Like human freedom will live on.
All right, Haley, our stand-in producer today, Haley.
He might even be listening right now. I'm not doxing you.
Give Max and me an action item there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Raise $10 billion.
And I'm not a hater on the new model idea. I think it's worth exploring, but I do think that this line of inquiry around sort of how do you make products better is, to me, it seems like a better starting point, because
I agree. I think you do both though.
Yeah. The model stuff, I mean, who owns and buys all the GPUs and who operates them, and over what time frame do you expect to make a return on that? And I think there's a lot of...
I'll provide a Bitcoin address and everyone can just send the funds there. I'll take care of it.
Yeah,
Steve is the trusted executioner.
By the way, Bocce Ball just asked, what kind of model is this again, guys? Just tuned in. Well, you should watch what we just talked about.
I'm not
gonna rehash everything, but like we are talking about solutions that accommodate all models. We also had a crazy idea to create a new model funded by wealthy Bitcoiners. So,
and Apple,
pretty much every option you can imagine we have just discussed.
Yeah, we're talking about AI.
I would not be surprised, by the way. Do you remember Global Crossing?
No.
Yes.
What's that?
This was like
Max is too young.
Max is too young. So this was, this company is huge, public. Yeah, something like that. Sometime around then. It's closer to the 70s than it is to now.
Okay.
But it was probably what, late 90s, I think. And it was just like huge infrastructure investment, like, dark fiber under the internet, and massive. I think they went public and had a massive IPO and raised tons of capital. And ultimately then the thing blew up, and there's nothing to see for it except that these, this dark fiber exists. It's under sea. And now and then it became very cheap to acquire, because everything around it blew up. And I'm not predicting that happens to every LLM company today, but I do think that LLMs may have a somewhat similar characteristic where like there's tons of investment going in. There's just like the nature of capitalism and bubbles and
markets. Yeah.
I think just it's fine. It is what it is. That's how you move society forward. But it could be that a lot of the billions of dollars being spent on model differentiation ends up looking like Global Crossing someday, and we're like, hey, glad we have it, but that's just base how human language works, and we don't just take it as a given. It's very cheap and commodity, and then it's these other layers of building that are actually where the value happens. I kind of feel like that's to me it feels like that's kind of where it goes. So
it's a pretty good, I think it's plausible.
But I want to make two points on this because I think this is actually very important. Number one, this might be the kind of thing that's just going to happen naturally, right? So for example, China is certainly going to try to do everything they can to like drive the cost of the model down to zero and then win on the hardware where they're dominant. And that's great. And I've seen a lot of people be like, yeah, like that's awesome. Like in a weird way, we're like very aligned with China on that. However, I personally am more skeptical than a lot of those voices I've heard because I'm like, what the hell is in the Chinese models? I am not at all convinced, and you cannot convince me there's not a poison pill in those models. And unless I can see the entire data set and trust it, which, by the way, probably not going to trust China, I don't believe that that's, I think that it could happen the way you're saying, but unless these guys, for whatever reason, and maybe one of them like Anthropic will slip far enough behind, they say, fuck it, we're throwing the whole Mary, or even Facebook, and we're going to just like show all the data. But again, you have to trust them. And so it could happen on its own, but I'm not sure. And even if it does, like the dark fiber thing, that was still a like net benefit to humanity. Is there a role where, yeah, you try and productize it, you try and make money on it, but like the investors frankly don't care. Like, it's like, we just want this thing to exist. We're going to open source. If we lose all of our money, like, fine. Like this is in the same way that,
but in a sense, like DeepSeek has already kind of done that. They spent billions of dollars. Why not just, that's how the English language works. Why not just use that and then build on top of it?
Because what I'm saying is I don't believe that you can trust DeepSeek. And like, for example, like could there be a poison pill?
Because it's from China.
Correct.
I would guess, I mean, there certainly could be problems. I would guess there's some, like if I were to allocate capital towards this, I'd rather than say train up a new competitive model, I'd allocate capital towards, there are techniques. I know of a specific major AI lab, which has part of the team expertise is their ability to kind of microsurgically change something deep within the model and understand where everything is and make a change when they need to. So they don't have to rerun a training run, which can cost billions of dollars, but they can actually have a crack team go in and sort of do this microsurgery on some of the weights or embeddings. And so I would rather say take the training model that DeepSeek did and build a layer to be able to do that kind of microsurgery on it to figure out if there are these poison pills in it.
Maybe. And I think that's a very worthwhile avenue to explore and sort of worth like this is beyond my area of expertise, but my like just initial, if we're shooting big, I think you do all of the above. My initial slight pushback on that is I would argue for my friends that are sort of stayed there in LLM land and like training them, no one really knows how this stuff works. And yeah, you can probably get to some degree, but like, I think it's still alchemy right now. And so my dream world would be we could see from ground up this thing built in open. Everything is open. I mean, that requires raising crazy amounts of capital, building a team, all these really hard things. So like maybe that's too much, and what you're saying is more realistic. But like if we're shooting for the stars, like let's shoot for the stars.
But
yeah. And one more thing I want to add, because I think this is super important. I think the other super critical thing that we can't lose sight of in all of this, and I'm actually going to amend my essay, having had this conversation with you guys right now. And hopefully by next week, we'll be able to announce the another little alpha type 1 summit coming up here at Presidio Bitcoin as well, thinking about radical energy infrastructure. I think that's going to be extremely important as well. The radically decentralized energy infrastructure for both training and serving. Because the other big challenge is, imagine you do raise all this money and you can do, okay, cool, we can train a new model, we can serve the new model, but like you're doing it in these like giant, eventually terawatt scale AI factories, right? Like, like wonder if that's like an easy thing to just shut down. Mm-hmm. The answer is yes, right? And so what I think is also very interesting is it's very important that we as a community figure out how to fund and incentivize as much decentralized, eventually training, that's harder, but serving infrastructure as well. So that could be, obviously, mini AI factories powered by solar and batteries completely off grid. I think there's strong economic reasons that's going to happen. But I also think as part of this like freedom AI push, That's as important as well.
All right. It's getting too late for my comment. So I want to get my comment in. I didn't understand. So like with undersea cables, we know how to verify that the information being sent over them is trustworthy. With software, we have the notion of reproducible builds. So they're not super popular right now, but it is possible to do a reproducible build so that I can independently verify the software I'm running is what's open source and published. I don't see how to independently verify an AI model, even if all the data is published, because you weren't there when they did the training.
Right.
And how can any human being independently verify that the training actually took that data input? And similar with hardware. Yeah. How do you independently verify that the H100 doesn't have some kind of backdoor or something, or poisoned in some way? And
I mean, I would say that's true though are you tracing the global crossing dark fiber to where it hits the junction that connects to the rest? Like you are trusting, right? So
but what's an example of, like, if I send data over that line and someone on the other end receives it, what's an example of how it could be tampered with?
I think that's fine. My point is more that these models are all probabilistic. Like, that's the feature, not the bug. It's the feature that is probabilistic. And I'm not proposing that, like the OpenAI model will eventually become open source or something. I'm more saying, I think a lot of what these models are really good at doing is figuring out how English language connects ideas and concepts together. And that core idea can be built again and again many times, and then eventually kind of get commoditized. And then the commoditized one could be open. So it's not like you need to have OpenAI's actual training run. You just need a bunch of forces forcing the state of the art to move forward. And then hopefully an open source, open weights thing can catch up. And we probably do need better like interpretability tools. So that's one of the things that, rather than, yes, do all of the above plus 10 other things, agreed, but also disagreed, because like you have to allocate time and attention and resources and stuff.
But my point is, even if it's open, like, we still don't know if that's the model we're using.
So we need some sort of interpretability. We need new tools. And I think those are tools I would advocate for. Let's have great interpretability tools. So if we do have an open source model, we can find the poison pills. Like, to me, that seems like a productive contribution to the world that doesn't exist and that could help us reach the goals we're talking about, versus, hey, let's go redo the thing that already exists. Like, we could go rebuild the dark fiber. We could go rebuild.
Okay. That sounds really hard to do, but okay. I agree. That's an interesting. By the way, we
haven't talked about any topics yet.
Well, we want to talk about, yeah.
Well, okay,
I think we move on. Let's move on.
One last thought on that, which is I agree with you, but I also don't necessarily agree that's even possible. If it is going to be possible, it's probably going to be AI agents doing it. And so that's like a really interesting area, is like having the AIs do the auditing. It's not going to be.
But then
humans.
How do you trust the AI that's doing that?
Well, then you would have, exactly. And then you say, well, we have like a whole bunch of these AIs. And if you have it from 10 different companies and whatever, but my point is, like, I'm not sure that, like, at least given our current physics, that's possible.
So